Sarah from London wants to know, when is Stranger Danger coming back? Bitch, I don't know. Everyone's so flaky when it comes to inviting people over to my house. Yes and no to answer that question from Jesus. Derek, you dirty little bitch. I love this question. If you're wondering why I'm still fat, it's because I fired my fucking trainer after that episode aired. You don't get to just come on my fucking podcast and then ghost me, okay? That's not fucking cool. If this is not a cliffhanger enough for you to stay tuned, to be a nosy bitch and get the tea, I don't know what to tell you. This is my delusional world. Welcome to Unshut, a place where if at any point you feel like you need to shut the up, don't. Happy Monday, everyone. It has been 27 weeks since I've put out a solo episode. 27 weeks, 27 guests, 27 Mondays. That is insane. I am not even too sure that I know how exactly I pulled it off, but I know that it's been a lot of hard work. I've been hustling my ass off like crazy. And just to share this right off the bat with you guys, this has also been the most fulfilling project of my entire life. Like, I have not felt this fulfilled and content and happy. I just can't even think of words to describe the feeling of what this has become. It has become the greatest project of my entire life, and I've never felt more confident. I've never felt more thrilled. The excitement, I feel like a kid again. I feel like I'm constantly challenging myself. It just feels so good. So if you've been following along, thank you so much for showing up for me at my worst, at my funniest, at my cringiest, at all of it. I appreciate you, and you help build this confidence of this new journey that I am on. And it's still hard to even believe we are not even a whole year in. Like, it hasn't even been a year. That is crazy. I think it's why I constantly preach, like, go with your gut, follow your intuition, and truly tap into using your fears as tools and not as weights, right? We don't want to use our fears to hold us back, to hold us down, but instead make them your bitch. Like, I have been so afraid of getting in front of a camera. I have been so afraid of talking into a camera, into a microphone, what my breaths sound like when I have cotton mouth, when I am raspy, when I am nasally, when I sound gay, when I sound like I don't know very good English, you know? Like, there are so many insecurities I face on a weekly basis when I do these episodes. But I've learned to just rock with it and to just be like, you know what, who gives a fuck? I'm gonna have fun with it. And you start to learn that you are truly in control of how you use those fears. Let this be a good example to all of you to use whatever fear you have and use it to your advantage. The only person that is in control of that is you. And when you take that leap, people do start to notice. Whether they notice because they're happy for you or because they're hating on you, it doesn't matter. They're noticing. So with that being said, you guys, happy Monday. I am so excited to do this solo episode with you guys. My lineup for the next few weeks is insane. There are a couple of guests on there that I have waited months to have on, and it's just crazy because again, I still consider this the beginning, the early stages of the podcast. So I want to kick off this episode by answering some questions, because the month of May is not only May, but it's also my birthday month. I'm finally entering my mid-30s. It's going to be a fun and exciting month for me. I'm also going back to Guatemala after a few years, which is where I was born, and I am so excited for so much that's happening this month. So much to announce and so much to have fun with. So this solo episode, I am super excited for it, and we're gonna go ahead and forget some of those cringy ones with me on the fucking couch where I was trying to hide my body with a fucking blanket, a Louis Vuitton blanket. You know, it's so funny to go back and watch my first episode because I was still truly insecure, and I'm still insecure now. I've tried to fix this camera and get a good angle of my face since hitting record. So they're still there, they're still present, but we're just having fun now. We don't give a shit anymore. I have learned throughout this journey that if people hate it and people love it, it's not going to dictate what I do and where I take this. This is truly up to me. If I were to do this podcast and only have musicians that my listeners like, or only do video reels or videos in general that only people are going to like, then I wouldn't be doing this podcast for me. And that is what this journey was about. It was about jumping into the unknown, truly taking a leap of faith and doing it because it's something I've always wanted to do. I've talked about it in earlier episodes where wanting to be on a daytime television show was my dream. Wanting to radio host is something I always wanted to do. And even though I enjoyed my choreography career, I still just didn't feel like I was truly fulfilling what I was placed on this earth to do. And what I am finally doing is connecting with a bunch of different people, from tattoo artists, from grungy artists to pop artists to hip hop artists, truly tapping into diversity. And going back to something I've talked about also is a lot of my downfalls as advantages, right? Moving around as a kid, I had no other choice but to learn how to adapt and meet other walks of life. So this is truly a reflection of that. I'm using it as a tool, and it has truly brought me to some of the most amazing people and to some incredible guests. And truly, I know, I can feel it in my heart that I am creating some small waves that are eventually going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's all because I went into this with the intention of doing something for me, putting me first, and also ignoring all the negativity, all the fears, all the doubts. Fuck them all. Let's have fun. So I'll shut the fuck up now and we can get back to some questions. Not even get back to, because I haven't even asked the first one. This is how excited I am. I think I may have ADHD. So with all that being said, let's jump into some questions. I've got them right here on my phone and I'm so excited to answer them. The first question I have is from Susan from Nashville, Tennessee. Why the name Unshut? This is such a fun one for me because I had dabbled with a lot of different names and options, and my siblings helped me kind of decide what the name would be. Just to share some insight on the original thought of a name for the podcast, I originally had names like Boiling Over, Mouth on Fire, and the inspiration came from my entire life being told, Te hierve tu boca. And it basically means your mouth is always boiling. It means I always talk too much. It means that when I start, I don't know how to shut up. And it's something that my mom used to say to me a lot, and other family members too. And so when it came to thinking of a name for the podcast, something with the mouth kept coming up. So I finally narrowed it down to quite a few options. After playing around with a lot of different names, I believe it was my brother Angel who came up with the idea of the name Unshut, which it just made perfect sense. It fit perfectly to what I wanted to do, which was have open conversations. I wanted it to be an open podcast. I didn't want it to be just about one topic. I wanted it to be about everything, but I wanted it to be open, and I wanted it to be something that also resembled the thought of never shutting up, never having a filter, always just speaking my mind. And my mouth got me in trouble a lot when I was little. And so the concept of the mouth and all the names I had basically came down to the word unshut. And fun fact about the cover art, I originally photographed my mouth being open with the title coming out. I even played around with some latex and glue, putting it in my mouth, opening it up, ripping it, photographing my mouth, and it just did not work out. I just could not pull it off. It looked funky, it looked weird, and I am not very tech savvy, and so therefore I went with a photo I found online, completely redrew all the little lines that you see on that logo. So if anyone ever comes across this and you originally did that mouth, don't fucking sue me. And so now you guys have a little bit of a backstory when it comes to the name Unshut, and now also the logo. The second question I have is from Marcus from Las Vegas. He said, I love your titles. How do you pick them? Picking the titles has become like my favorite part of the entire editing process. Very early on, before I even launched the podcast, I told my partner, if I do a podcast, I want my titles to almost resemble an album, a CD. I'm a big music lover, obviously choreography background. I love music. And so that was something that I did with intention. And I remember saying, I want people to go to my catalog and be able to see that my titles are catchy, they are thought out, they're fun, and they tell a story within the title. And so something that's become a ritual after recording an episode, after I edit it, I love to wait till almost the very last minute. So I drop the episodes on Mondays. So on Saturday and Sunday, I'll play back the episodes completely finished. And then I start to take notes on, this would be a good title. I like what they said. Oh, I like what I said there. This makes sense. And also something that's become kind of fun is giving the audience something to look forward to look at how the episode got its title. I think that's something that also started very early on with guests, was take a listen, figure out what part of the episode gave this title. And I think that's also become a lot of fun, not just for some listeners, but I know for me, it's almost exciting and it gives me something to look forward to for people that do DM me about the episode, for them to be like, I love how that title came along. And so, yeah, that's how I pick them. I listen to them. I take a lot of notes. I journal. I say this a lot in a lot of episodes. I journal questions. I journal titles. I just do a lot of journaling in general. And that is how I pick the names. It's so much fun and it's one of my favorite things to do, but it's always the last minute thing I do with every single episode because I want it to be spontaneous. I want it to be fun. So the third question I have is from Amy from Vancouver, Canada. She wants to know, are there any rituals before you start an interview? This is probably the easiest question for me because a very big ritual that I do prior to an interview is listen to their music. So because I have a lot of musical artists, I listen to all of their music right before an interview. And something that's become really fun for me is a lot of my spontaneous questions on the episodes come from inspiration from listening to last minute things right before I hop on a call. I love this question so much because that is truly a ritual. I listen to their music from the moment I wake up to when I'm showering, getting dressed, getting the room ready, the camera, everything, taking my girls for a walk in the morning before I do the interview to tire them out so they leave me the fuck alone. It's just listening to their music. So I love doing that. Jasmine from Pasadena, California wants to know, what episode surprised you the most? This is a really good question because I have so many episodes that truly surprised me. I want to say the one that probably sticks out to me the most is the episode I did with Tim Fogg. That's only because, fun fact about that episode, I was expecting the lead singer or the whole band. I had no idea that the bassist was going to be the one to hop on the call. That is something that was just a bit of a miscommunication when getting it set up with their publicist, and so I was not expecting that. And so I'll have to see if I still have it, but my initial reaction to starting the episode was very, holy shit. All the questions I have written down do not pertain to this guy. How the fuck am I going to pull this off? And so I think because of that, not only challenged me in a very positive way because I was able to think quick on my toes and improv and just go along with it, but it was also so refreshing because not only did I surprise myself in a good way, I was also so into the episode with him. I thought that what he had to say was so awesome, and it's actually one of my favorite episodes to this day because we even got to shoot the shit about movies and like talk about wanting to have open conversations. And something that was a big intention from the very beginning was I did not want to ask boring questions. I don't want to ask you, what's your favorite song on the album? I say that all the time. This was one of them. This was one of the first episodes where I finally got to do that. And so for that reason, the interview with Tim Fogg from Telltale surprised me the most. Johnny from Mexico City asked, did you know any guests prior to doing an episode with them? The only two people that I have known personally on the podcast up to date prior to recording an episode were the episode I did with my friend Mike, where we talked about his dad who transitioned from male to female, and Elle, the drag queen. Those were the only two guests that I have had so far that I've known in person. And I also like this question because so many people were surprised to know that Matt Sarafa and I were not friends before doing an episode together. I remember one of my older sisters wrote me and said, hey, I didn't know you were friends with him. I had to break the news to her. We've never met in person. I don't know him. He is just truly someone I reached out to over Instagram, and it was such a fun experience. But I think it's because of that reason, that feeling of, oh my gosh, they know each other, why people felt like the episode was just such a good vibe. And it's truly one of the highest streamed episodes to date on my catalog. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I think people just liked our energy together. He was so fun. I feel like he definitely made me feel confident and comfortable. And it was such a fun episode. Now that I'm talking about this, I want to share a funny story, and I can't believe I'm going to admit this to you guys. But when I booked him, I was in the bathroom taking a shit. Like, I literally wrote him spontaneously on the toilet. I was like, you know what? He responded to a post I did because I had bought one of his pieces before. And so I was sitting in the toilet going, you know what? I'm just going to just randomly write him. And I'm sitting there and I get a response back and the rest is history. So fun story about that, you guys. It totally happened while I was on the shitter and it's hilarious. I have never talked about that before, but that is just some inside scoop to that episode. And I absolutely love that episode. It's to this day one of my favorites. Being able to sing with him and jam out to Lil' Kim. So much fucking fun. I love that one. Joan from Chicago wants to know, what episode have you listened to the most? This one's the easiest question for me too. The episode I did with Ashton, also known as Vendetta Lust, is hands down one of my favorites. I love the way he and I laughed. He was another guest that to this day, it just feels like someone I had known, like someone that I had been laughing and shooting this shit with my entire life. And one of my first texts to him after recording the episode was like, wow, laughing with you felt so familiar. And I absolutely love that. And that episode I have listened to in the car, on my walks, in my house, in my headphones. I have listened to that episode probably the most. And to this day, it's almost become kind of dangerous because it's taken me a minute to not compare all of my guests to him, to the way he and I vibed off of one another, because he definitely went along with shooting the shit and just ugly laughed with me. For a moment, it almost became kind of like, oh, I don't think that guest really liked me because they didn't laugh with me the way I laughed with Ashton. And it took quite a few reminders, specifically for my partner, to be like, hey, you can't compare every guest to him. Every guest is going to be different. So it's been a learning curve, but it's the reason why his episode is one of my favorites, and it's the one I've listened to the most. Logan from Bumfuck, Arkansas asks, do you listen to your own podcast? On a weekly basis, as soon as I drop an episode, I listen to it in the car, in the morning, having coffee, even after I've listened to it already from beginning to end before posting it to make sure it's all good to go. Yes, I listen to the episode as soon as it airs Monday morning. Annie from New York wants to know, best advice you can give someone who wants to start a podcast. The best advice I could give someone who wants to start a podcast, 1000%, is don't try to make sense of everything. I think that was something I learned very quickly on even just my first couple of guests. Don't try to make sense of it. Roll with the punches and just do it. And I think a really good lesson is when you stop trying to make sense of everything, you truly learn to just go with the flow. And it's a good reminder who you are doing this for. You are starting a podcast for you because you want it to be fulfilling to you. You're not doing it. I mean, some people may want to put out a podcast with other intentions, and that's totally okay. But I really do believe that the reason why I am seeing a lot of good positive feedback and some really awesome milestones early on the pod is because of that. Is because I've stopped trying to make sense of it. I don't overthink. Should I post this video? Is it cringy? I don't do that. And that is the one advice I would give anyone. Don't try to make sense of it. Just roll with the punches, have fun, do it for you. Something when it comes to the algorithm, this is my feedback to the algorithm. Fuck the algorithm. You create your own algorithm. The universe has its own different algorithm. And I think that the second I stopped trying to post on a day where engagement was higher and dropping episodes on a day that the algorithm said podcasts do so good if you post on a Tuesday or Thursday, whatever, is when truly I started to gain the most traction on the podcast. Fuck the algorithm. You create your own algorithm, post it however, whenever you want. That organic growth is so much more fulfilling than posting something, having viral success and quick success. And I think that's also a really good message to put out is when it comes to my podcast, I'm not looking for viral moments. Early on, I was. The first couple of episodes I did, I would post clips of it in hopes that they would go viral. And then I finally realized I don't want to grow that quickly. I want to build a solid foundation and I want organic growth. And the second, you guys, the second that I stopped giving a shit about, oh, I only got a couple of likes on this video and all of my followers, I got hundreds of views and no one took the time to even like it, was the second that I let go of that pressure, was also the second I had the most growth. growth on the podcast. So fuck the algorithm. Don't make sense of it. Just post, just do it at your liking, your style, and the right people are going to take notice. Organic growth is so much better than a viral moment because it creates longevity. This is what we're doing. We're creating longevity together, you guys. Arnold from South Africa asked, what's your biggest pet peeve of having a podcast? Hands down, the breathing. I hate the breaths before starting a sentence, and it's truly created a lot of work for me on every single episode doing audio cleanup, but it's so worth it. I never realized how much I hated the breaths before someone starts to talk. What? So that has become my biggest pet peeve in this entire journey, is the breathing sounds really drive me fucking nuts. I am a heavy breather and I fucking hate my breaths before I talk, especially when I hear back. I get cotton mouth because I get excited and I'm nervous and I'm obviously doing a lot of talking. That used to bother me, but now it doesn't bother me so much because it's fucking normal. We all get it. I'm not as self-conscious as I was before with it now, but the breaths, 100%. Every episode, I take out mine and my guests included, all of our breaths before any sentence. It's just my thing. Not a lot of people do that, but I do like to clean up my audio for that. And it's because it's become one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate the breath work before a sentence. Kristen from Poland wants to know, who edits your episodes before they are? Girl, you're looking at them. It's me. I do the audio cleanup, the editing, the videos, the posting, all of it. It's me. I am a one-man show. I produce it. I write it. I do everything completely myself. I do my own PR. I do all of it. So this is actually a question that I want to say 4 people in person, friends that I've gone out to dinner with and stuff, they have all asked the same thing. They thought that I had been getting some help or sourcing my episodes out, which I think it's a huge compliment for me, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you for thinking that I have external help into this podcast. It's truly a one-man show. Maybe in the near future it will. We'll see. Stay tuned to find out. Pia from Austin, Texas wants to know, have you scratched any episodes? Yes. And unfortunately for this episode, we are not going to deep dive into that yet. But I do have episodes that I have scratched with guests, and I will definitely talk about that in the future. So if this is not a cliffhanger enough for you to stay tuned to be a nosy bitch and get the tea, I don't know what to tell you. It's not for this episode, but yes, there are some episodes that I have tossed, put in the trash can, not airing them, don't want nothing to do with them, and we'll get to that in the future. Poppy from Austin, Texas, she asked, which episode has performed the best? I love this question because I think so many people have a misconception that if you get a big guest, that episode is going to have the highest streams. My number one highest guest streamed episode is Alex Melendez, the high school student I found on Spotify. He has surpassed Brooke Hogan, Alfonso Pichardo from Moenia. I mean, some big names on the pod by like 20 to 30 streams over theirs. My episodes continue to gain streams on a weekly basis. So even though I air them on Mondays, an episode that I aired 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, some people like to play catch up. And so on a weekly basis, my episodes are still gaining streams. And that is one that to this day is still just getting so many streams. So Alex Melendez, shout out to you. I loved that episode. Not only did you make me cry on that episode, but it was so much fun. And by the way, if you didn't pick up on it, no one submitted these fucking questions. These are questions I asked myself, okay? I did my own Q&A for this episode. This was just a spontaneous idea I came up with, wanting to ask some questions that some people have asked me, but they did not submit them. And so now that you know, this is my delusional world. This is it. This is what being delusional looks like, okay? I completely created these guests and these questions. So my next question is from Alfredo from Guatemala. He asked, ¿Vas a tener más episodios en español? Will you be doing any more episodes in Spanish? Yes, I do have some more up my sleeve. I'll be dropping them in the near future. But yes, Spanish episodes, they are still something I am wanting to put out. The Alfonso Pichardo one was so much fun and I loved it. And I just need to keep practicing my Spanish. Even though it's my first primary language, it's still a language I do not practice on a daily basis. So I was still a little bit insecure with that first episode with him, but I am dropping future episodes in Spanish because I have so many listeners from Spanish-speaking countries, and so why not keep doing Spanish episodes? I'm fucking Hispanic. So yeah, stay tuned for more Spanish episodes in the future. Sarah from London wants to know, when is Stranger Danger coming back? Bitch, I don't know. Everyone's so flaky when it comes to inviting people over to my house, and reasonably so, but so many people have flaked on me when it came to doing Stranger Danger episodes, and because this is truly an invite-only podcast, I am not extending the invite to just anyone or dropping so many invites on Instagram. I have invited a handful, and whenever they're ready to come on, we will do more Stranger Danger episodes. It did become a little bit difficult to do Stranger Danger episodes while I was in London. Don't know that I'm going to be doing one while I am in Guatemala, but it's very difficult to convince people, and reasonably so, to come up to your room and get in front of a camera. Not a lot of people can hack it. That's the same thing with some of the people here in Texas that I've asked to come over to my house. They're kind of, I don't know if they're just sketched out by it. It's totally cool. I am still open to doing them with the right people. And so Stranger Danger is not completely tossed out, but if people will stop being chicken shit, then we can record some fun episodes. So Jake from State Farm wants to know, do you take it personal when a guest does not follow you back? Absolutely not. I am so well aware of branding and social media managers. I do not take that personally at all. What I do take personal when there is zero engagement, when there is not even a hint of acknowledgement. Actually, let me get comfortable for this one, because I'm about to get triggered. I do not take that personal at all. Completely understand that sometimes an artist is not fully in control of their social media, and it's not personal at all. What I do not tolerate, and something that really pisses me off, is when there is zero engagement after doing an episode together, which has happened to me a couple of times. And definitely not going to name drop, but I can tell you that one of them was not Mariah Carey. Okay, here's the thing. I do not appreciate that, because this is a two-way street. You don't get to just come on my fucking podcast and then ghost me. Okay, that's not fucking cool. And on top of that, it's also very unprofessional. If someone like Brooke Hogan and someone like Alfonso Pichardo can take their time out of the day to thank me for the opportunity, to reach out post airing the episode, to shout me out, to put me on their stories, etc., and show support one way or another, why the fuck doesn't an independent artist do the same? That is something that I do get triggered about, because I think it's so shady. You are not better than me. Okay, this is truly something I get so triggered about for that reason, because the people that have been the big names on my podcast, Brooke Hogan being one of them, Matt Sarafa, they have such strong followings. They work with A-list celebrities. They all take the time to always repost, always comment on my post. So I don't understand why some of these independent artists, they feel like they are too good to even just comment or follow or send a thank you note. That is not cool. Sometimes just a thank you is so much more than a follow on Instagram. And I do have some guests who have not followed me back on Instagram, but they took the time to write me to say thank you, to say how much they love the episode. That is so much more valuable to me than a fucking follow. And so, yeah, I have some guests that I follow who don't follow me back. That doesn't bother me. Just don't be a bitch about it. And don't think that you're high and mighty. Because something I am also noticing in this experience with podcasting, it's the guests that take the time to establish that relationship, who know how to network, who understand professionalism. They're doing fucking better, and they're killing it. They're putting out better produced music. They're doing so good. And there are some who aren't. Scotty from Toronto asked, has there been any backlash from an episode? Yes. I don't even know where to begin with this one, but I can truly tell you that the first episode that comes to mind is my fitness rant got my trainer fired. So if you're wondering why I'm still fat, it's because I fired my fucking trainer after that episode aired. So don't really need to get into so many details about it, but I will tell you this. That episode was a huge learning experience for me, because I learned how quickly people will take your experiences and how you share share them and make them about themselves. And I don't fuck with that. You don't get to take my experience, what I had to say and what I had to share, and make it about you, especially when I thought I did a pretty damn good job at not saying anything negative about this person and making it very clear that the episode had nothing to do with my current trainer, but with a trigger that took me back to previous experiences. And taking that experience and making it about themselves, in my opinion, was something that I did not have room to tolerate. And so because of that, that's the one episode I can think that has had the most backlash, if you want to call it. So with that being said, I am on the market for a trainer. If you're fucking hot and you're good at what you do, hit me up. Just kidding. Alejandro from El Salvador wants to know, how do you get guests? Writing people. It's the easiest thing. There are tools to find people's publicist, and it's called Google. It's called DMing people. It's called writing people until they say no. Something that I think is so awesome. I have not invited a guest just because they put music out. These are artists that I listen to or have discovered and added to my playlist because I love what they're doing. And so I think that's the coolest part. So getting guests is actually not very difficult. The tools and the resources are right in front of us. Our phones, there's Google. On Instagram, there's that message people button. So there are definitely ways to do it. And that is how I get my guests. I just shoot my shot. Connor from Ireland asked, what's the most annoying question you get? The most annoying question I get is definitely, how many followers do you have? This is something that immediately tells me, awesome, we're not doing an episode together. And the reason I stand by this is because we are moving in this generation of numbers not correlating with one another anymore. You can have 100,000 monthly listeners on Spotify and only have 5,000 followers on Instagram. They don't correlate anymore. It's not like that anymore. Algorithms are different on different platforms. And I think to have a guest who that is so important to is not even a guest I even respond to. It's not worth it. They're looking for something that I have established from the very beginning of this podcast is I'm not looking for followers. I don't want my guests to feel obligated to follow me and engage with me on social media with everything I do. Absolutely not. I am looking for organic growth and organic engagement. And if you can't give me that, and if you don't fuck with that, then this is not for you, because I know where I am taking this podcast and what I am willing to do with this and what I am going to accomplish with this. And it's not for everyone, and that's totally okay. I don't need to be an influencer, have a strong following to put out good content and to have awesome guests on my podcast. So to answer that question, that's the most annoying question I get. How many followers do you have? Josie from Detroit, Michigan wants to know, unsolicited advice, how do you deal? I ignore. Listen, if you are not putting yourself out in ways that I am, or you don't have a podcast yourself and you don't know what it's like to market yourself or to own your brand, to own a company, you don't get to offer me unsolicited advice. I think that's so rude. And believe it or not, it has happened. Followers, friends, family members, they feel like it's okay to just shoot me a DM or a text and be like, oh, I loved your episode, but I would have done this differently. Shut the fuck up. You're not doing it. You don't know what it's like. And there are different ways to give someone unsolicited advice without making it feel like it's a dig at what they just worked so hard to put out. Take notes, everyone. I am so open to constructive criticism, but approach is so important. And being aware of how you're going about telling someone your opinion is so important. Do not just out of the bat come out swinging and telling me how I could do a better job. I think it's so rude. If we're having a conversation, of course, I want to know what my listeners like, what they don't like. I'm so open to it. But what I'm not going to do is be told, I would have done this a little bit differently, or you should do this on your podcast instead of this. No, you don't know what it's like to put yourself out there and do what I am doing, or even excel in something the way I am doing it. You don't get to tell me how I can do it better. And I can also read people's tones and where it's coming from. If it's a backhanded compliment, fuck off. If it's truly open, constructive criticism, I always try to apply and I always take it, and I'm very grateful for that. So I think being aware of how the unsolicited advice is coming is very important, and it's total key. Christy from Atlanta, Georgia asked, what type of support do you expect from your listeners? Stream my shit. Just stream it. I love the support on all different platforms across the board, which brings me to talk about this. I do not promote YouTube because of how censored YouTube is. And if you've been watching me, you know I have a potty mouth. So I'm not trying to be tallied on how many bad words I say per episode, okay? Fuck. Okay? I cuss a lot. It just comes out. Sometimes I am a nervous cusser. It just happens. It's just how it is. And so I do not promote YouTube. However, my episodes are on YouTube for those that prefer to watch on YouTube. So what I expect from listeners is just to support where they can, when they can. I have family members who like to bulk up episodes and listen to a few at a time. And I absolutely love that. I do not expect everyone to stream my shit on Monday morning right when they air. Listen, I know you have a life. I know I have a life outside of this as well. It's totally cool. I do not expect everyone to always DM me and talk about it. I love that people do, but truly just follow along. I think it's so cool that some people have been listening to me since my cringy solo episodes. And so with this question, I do want to give a very special shout out to Christina, who early on from launching, she sent me a DM on Instagram and asked, what is the best way to support you? Where should we stream that benefits you the most? To this day, no one has asked me that. She's the only one. And I am so appreciative of that question. And that is the type of support that I am looking from my listeners. Just support me in any way you can. I am so thankful and so grateful if you give me 1 stream, 10 streams, all platforms, 1 platform, or if you truly just engage with me on Instagram. I think that's so cool. Jesus from the Bible said, did you listen to podcasts before starting your own? First of all, Jesus, thank you so much for submitting a question, because I know you and I talk on a daily fucking basis because of all the times I want to throw my phone, slam this laptop shut. So I was not a very big podcast listener. I did listen to a lot of crime in podcast, but I was not a big podcast listener. So when I mean I am truly figuring this shit out from the ground up, I truly do mean it. I was not a very big podcast listener. I guess it does kind of count because the crime ones were my favorite. But when it comes to interviews, I never really did. I would watch clips of them online, but never really sit down and listen to a podcast. So yes and no to answer that question from Jesus. Kai from Hawaii wants to know, best strategy you had when you started. I love this one because I think the best strategy I had was knowing, because I did not listen to podcasts, I knew that embarking in this journey with listeners that possibly also did not listen to podcasts was going to be a bit of a challenge. And I think the cool part about this is that a big majority of my audience, they weren't podcast listeners to begin with. So strategically is why I had very short episodes to begin with, as I was easing everyone into listening to my episodes for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and now we're at 40 to 50 minute marks. And I think that strategically, that is something I came up with on my own. Didn't do any research about it. I just kind of went with my gut in that sense. And I realized from the very beginning, you know what? A lot of my listeners are not going to be big podcast listeners. So if I want them to embark on this journey with me, I need to ease them into it. So consider my early episodes fucking lube, okay? Seth from Kansas City, Missouri asked, do you get frustrated when a post or episode doesn't do well? Early on, yes. It used to bother me so much that out of the thousands of followers I had, only 70 people joined my broadcast channel. I think it's still under 80. And it bothered me that so many people, you see my story, you see my post, and only 2 people take the time to fucking like it. It was such a dig at the beginning. And now I don't care, because I realized that I didn't need your fucking likes to be successful at this. So therefore, I'm still going to post when I want, whatever I want. And whether 1 person or 0 people engage with it, I still posted it. I still stand by it. I still enjoyed it. And so therefore, I don't care. And I think that's such a good lesson for anyone listening, is don't depend on those likes and those follows. You could still be successful at this. If I would have depended on likes and follows, I would have never gotten people like Matt Sarafa, Brooke Hogan, but I'm not. I'm not paying any mind to that. So it does suck sometimes when you post something that you worked so hard at posting and no one takes the time to engage with it. Of course, it hits your ego, it hits your self-esteem, but at the end of the day, you have to remind yourself you didn't need those likes to be successful to begin with. So fuck it. While I'm talking about this, I want to throw out this quick challenge to everyone listening, okay? When starting a new journey, when doing something new, before doing it, I want you to take a piece of paper or write down on your phone all the things you already have that you didn't need that to feel successful. This was a huge pivotal point for me on the podcast early on, creating a list of the things I had that I did not need to depend on likes and follows to have. For example, my house, my badass car, my baby girls, my poodles, they're my life, they're my everything, my partner, the support I have from my friends and family. I didn't need likes and follows to have those things. So therefore, it would not matter if no one liked what I was doing. So I definitely challenge everyone who is trying to put content, put out a podcast, or make more engaging posts on Instagram. Write down a list of the things you have that you don't need those likes and engagement to have. And I think that that'll also hurt the blow when you come to the realization that when you think everyone is going to support you and they don't, it's totally okay. That really helped with letting go of that pressure and truly just having fun with it and posting it just to post. And I will also share this if I haven't already. The day that I decided to not pay attention to my streams anymore, not look at anything like that from the pod, is when shit started to blossom. Literally, I remember going to bed thinking, I'm done looking. I'm not going to look at how many streams it got. Don't give a shit anymore. The next day, I started to get all these notifications from Spotify and Spotify for podcasters. And it's when I started to gain this traction of, hey, you've got listeners in Argentina. You've got listeners in so-and-so. And after that, it just started to roll in. So the second I let go of that pressure and the second I truly said, I don't give a shit anymore and I'm just going to have fun, I started to gain all these countries and all these streams. And I think it's just the coolest thing ever. Derek from LA asked, if your partner gave you a pass with a guest, who would it be? Derek, you dirty little bitch. I love this question because it's so obvious. If you didn't know, I don't even know why I'm whispering like it's a big fucking secret. This is truly a conversation I've had with my partner though, and I think it's so fucking hilarious because if it wasn't obvious on Instagram, there is one guest I've had that to this day just gives me butterflies. And you guys, I'll also explain this because I don't want you guys to think I'm being disrespectful to my relationship or that I'm being a fucking slut. Okay, we don't host shame on this podcast like I said before. This is just truly a guest I had that made me weak to the knees, and it had everything to do with the fact that his confidence and his acceptance to my style, my dark humor, my gayness did not affect him in a negative way. And that, you guys, is Jordy Pla. To this day, is the one guest I had on that I immediately thought he's probably not going to repost any of my shit. And to this day, he engages with every single post on Instagram, whether it's a tag, a comment, a repost. If I say anything to him, he responds. He really surprised the shit out of me. And his episode was more than just an episode. It truly embodies what not judging a book by its cover truly means. Just because he's this edgy tattoo artist doesn't mean that he is not accepting and compassionate. And I love that about that episode. So in my opinion, that is what makes him dreamy. He is so fucking hot because of that. He is just so attractive because he is someone that just looks like they would not give a fuck about a gay host who's doing a podcast. And here he was shooting the shit with me, having so much fun. And I even started to make some inappropriate jokes about the chokehold he had on me. And I was posting all these pictures about him choking me out and shit. And he was posting it on his Instagram. And I thought that was just the coolest thing. And so to this day, there is an ongoing joke where I tell everyone, if my partner did give me a pass with any guest, it would be Jordy Pla. Jordy Pla, if you sent unsolicited dick pics to my DM, I would open them and not tell a single soul. Just kidding, you guys. I'm totally kidding. To answer that question that I asked myself on this pod, because I'm fucking delusional and I'm doing this on my own right now, Jordy Pla is the biggest crush I have on the pod so far. Antonio from Argentina wants to know, has a guest disappointed you? Well, I already said it wasn't Mariah Carey, so you do the math, figure that shit out. That wraps up the questions for right now. I did ask my partner who listens to me Monday morning, 7 o'clock. He is the first listener I have, and so for that I am so grateful. And so I did ask my partner to submit some questions. And you guys, this is how we're going to wrap up this episode. This is officially how I am introducing you all to submit questions to me. My email is not a secret. It's posted on my Instagram. It's posted on my Linktree. You have my email. Submit questions. What's your favorite episode? Is there an episode you want a little bit more tea on? This is my way of opening this up to you guys. Moving forward with solo episodes, I will be answering some questions. So feel free to hit me up and submit some questions. So let's move on to those questions real quick and then we'll wrap this episode up. My partner asked me 4 questions. The first one is, and these are real, I didn't submit these myself, okay? What's your biggest success so far with the podcast? I think the biggest success for me is the self-confidence I am finding on a weekly basis. I am becoming more comfortable with who I am, how I talk, how I move, and I think internally and externally, it's making me feel like a sexier person. I feel like I'm about to enter year 35 of my life this month, and I've never felt better. I feel good, and I think that that is the biggest success, is that the realization that I definitely took my fears and insecurities, and I've officially made them my bitch. So I would say that's the most success I've had on the podcast, is the self-love that has come through this journey, as cheesy as it sounds. The second question is, what has been your biggest letdown? The biggest letdown in general is realizing how many people will engage with what I post and what I do, but don't take the split fucking second it takes to hit like on a post or anything like that. And this comes from family members, from friends who I can obviously see that you see my shit. And to me, it's like, damn, that realization of like, you truly do think that the people that support you will, and it's always the ones that you wouldn't expect to show all their love and support are the ones showing up for me on a weekly fucking basis. That has been the biggest letdown. I do not hold it against anyone. It just truly hurts because I think prior to doing this podcast, like I would repost everyone's shit, even shit that had nothing to do with me, that it was about fucking moms and children. But if it was a business that someone who I had not even talked to in 15 years was posting, their little business on Instagram, I would repost it, show support. And the second it became my turn to throw myself at something new, like starting a podcast, those people weren't anywhere to be found. That harsh realization of like, listen, don't expect everyone to love and support the way you do, because it's very unrealistic and it sucks. It happens, you move on, and you truly do figure out who your true tribe members are. So the next question is, what drives you to keep going every day, even through the hard times? I think the moment I realized that so many people that I thought would engage with me weren't, and yet I was still being successful, was the moment I realized that is why I keep showing up. Because you don't depend on others to be successful. You don't depend on others to truly do what you want to do. This, like I mentioned, has become the most fulfilling journey I've ever taken. And that is why I keep showing up every fucking week. I show up because I am showing up for me. This is not just another podcast. This is about showing how guests are compassionate and loving. And it's the reason why I shoot the shit with certain guests, because it's more than just having a guest for clout. It's about showcasing past their artistry. And so that is why I keep showing up, because I realized in that moment, with lack of support, this is truly becoming something bigger than I ever even imagined. That's why I keep showing up every week. It's for that feeling. It's for that feeling of like, hey, you did not engage with my shit and I still had this guest. What's up? As cocky and arrogant as it sounds, I don't mean it that way, but it truly is just the perfect example of, I'm doing this for me. For the first time in my life, I am consistently on a weekly basis showing up for me. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to share. And so I feel like that is why I get motivated even at my lowest. Most of you guys will never ever get to see the amount of times I have cried to my partner because of the rejection or the mean things someone sent to my DM because they did not like what I had to say. And I can definitely see why it's so easy and so many people throw in the towel so quickly. I have also learned to respect the people who have continued to show up for all these years. This is truly the first time that I have exposed myself with choreography. I didn't need the support of my followers. I didn't need the support of my friends and family. I didn't need it. Now I am on this journey where I do depend on support more than ever. And now the saying, it truly takes a village, has a completely new meaning. And this is also why I am so appreciative for the people that do show their support in any sort of way. That is why I keep showing up every week. It's truly for me and because I'm having so much fun. Even though it comes with big lows, the rewards of this journey have been bigger than I ever even imagined. The last and final question says, social media shows a false reality. What are some misconceptions people have about you because of what they see on social media? That it's fucking easy. Everyone thinks this is so easy for me. Everyone thinks, oh, choreographer, music, it makes sense. No, it doesn't make fucking sense, okay? This has been so fucking hard. But like I said, yet the most rewarding thing ever, and I think social media, because they only get to see the pretty, they only get to see the final product, they don't get to see the hard work that went into posting episodes. Like there was one episode I posted that I had to screen record the whole thing because the system that I was using to edit my episodes at the time glitched the entire time. The audio was off and I was up till 5 a.m. Sunday, okay? So technically 5 a.m. Monday to upload an episode so it could be ready to air at 7 a.m. Monday morning. And so I do think that that is a bit of a challenge because social media, they only get to see the finished product. So I think the biggest misconception is that it was so easy. Oh wow, he edits and then he gets to travel to London. You know, he was just in LA, he was just here. Like people think like, oh, he gets to do it and travel. Like, yes, it's a huge luxury, but I've been doing that shit my whole life. That was me as a choreographer. I was traveling and yet it looked so easy. And I hope that people are now starting to wake up and realize that social media is final products. It's not the in-between and the beginning. I also want people, specifically my listeners, to know that my social media was not intended to be a place to share the ugly. I go to social media to truly escape the ugly shit. Someone said it, and I can't remember, but someone said it recently. I think it was Bella Rios. Bella Rios recently said if she wanted to look at negative shit, she would turn on the news. That is something I have truly said almost my entire life. Social media is not a place for me to show you the ugly. Sometimes those ugly moments come in their intimate moments between the people I choose to share them with. If you are coming onto social media expecting for people to share their ugly and you want to call people fake because, oh, they only post the good shit, well, then you're a negative person. I don't know what to tell you. And I think it's just so important to remind people everyone's agendas are different. And when it comes to my Instagram, I am not naive to the fact that there are harsh realities that come with social media. It's also a reason why prior to podcasting, I also stopped doing unboxing shit on my Instagram story because so many people thought, oh my gosh, another Louis Vuitton shopping spree. Oh my God, another Hermes shopping spree. Oh my God, another blah, blah, blah. He's showing off his new car, his new house. I stopped doing that because I also started to realize that there were so many people that were forgetting where Moses came from. They were forgetting that, like, yes, I am living such a fortunate life, but let's not forget the little kid who was selling food when he was little out in the streets of LA. And I think this is why it's so important to remind people there are different agendas for Instagram. Instagram is not a place for me to air dirty laundry and get all negative. And yes, I'll be vulnerable. I'm being vulnerable on this podcast and sharing stories and getting a little bit sassy here and there. But my intention in social media is not to go to a place to get the tea. And that has also become one of the foundations of my podcast when having guests on. It's not a place to seek out the tea. I'm not having Brooke Hogan to talk about the drama with her dad and her family members. There are so many other outlets and other social media platforms that do that. And so I don't want to be another one of those. So to answer that question as gracefully as I can is that the biggest misconception is that it looks easy. And the reality of it is everything I am doing is not fucking easy. So with that being said, I don't even know how to conclude this episode other than I cannot wait for you to see who my next guests are. If you haven't looked and liked the playlist on my Spotify, it's a really good way to get sneak peeks because I randomly drop artists on there. Stay tuned for the next episode. She's a total badass, and especially if you're in the no hints, blah. How do I say bye? I always wave at the camera with my guests, so should I just wave? I don't know. Awesome. See you next week. Whoa, that was weird. I usually don't wink. Why am I trying to change it up? If it ain't broken, don't try to fix it. Just kidding. See, now I'm just losing my shit. Awesome. Thank you for listening. See you next week. Hey, if you've made it this far, don't forget to follow the socials on the screen or in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. See you next week.